yourselves a black hand for listening.
Oh, okay.
It is so encouraging to have young people who are learning their heritage, who are learning what they want to do in life, right? Embracing it with confidence. And that's what we have at the Uhuru Academy, don't we? Is that what we have at the Uhuru Academy?
No.
Huh?
Yes.
No? Yes? Huh? All right, all right. You guys love your people?
Yes.
Are you proud of your heritage?
Yes.
Yes.
Hey, I say.
Yes.
All right. I think our distinguished guest just came in. If I'm not mistaken, I saw Wonderful Sound Studio.
Wait, let me see.
Don't forget the introduction.
Okay, well, I want him to, can we spotlight our well, before we spotlight our guest, we need to do the official introduction.
Yes.
He's going to be introduced by one of our high school students, Miss Kibra Muhammad. Y'all, let's give Kibra a hand, please. Can we spotlight Kibra Muhammad, Koyo? Who's the host?
Who's Kibra? I never.
We're gonna see Kibra in just a second. That's Kibra right there. All right. Cool.
Hi, everybody. I am super excited for our guest speaker today. We are going to be hearing from a best-selling author, award-winning filmmaker, recording artist, and a distinguished professor who Los Angeles Times calls one of America's best storytellers. Man, this incredible brother has written great books such as Buck, a memoir, amazing films such as The Black Candle, and inspiring music such as Young Bucks. I think that this is a powerful brother, and I am excited to have him today, and I hope you all are too. Now, without any further ado, please give a huge round of applause for Brother MK Asante.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sister. What's your name?
Kibra Muhammad.
Oh, Kibra, Sister Kibra, thank you so much.
Yes,
That was
sir.
a beautiful introduction.
All right. Mama and Koyo, can we highlight Brother Asante, please?
I'm getting it. Yes, sir. I'm on it.
All right.
There we go.
Hey, how you doing?
Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
Hi.
How's everybody doing?
I've been doing good so far. How about you?
Hi.
All right. Peace, brother. How you doing? Welcome to the Uhuru Academy.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm doing wonderful. Thank you. I'm doing wonderful. It's great to be here. You know, it's great to feel everybody's energy. Beautiful introduction, beautiful school. So peace to everybody at Uhuru. Have you just in terms of format, have you guys watched Black Candle? I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Yes. It was
Okay.
Yes.
It's great.
Okay, great. So how did you want to do this, instructors? Did you want to do like a Q&A, or did you want to have me talk a little bit about it?
We have some great questions for you.
Okay.
But before we get into the questions, if you could tell us a little bit about yourself and what inspired you to film The Black Candle, we can get started like that, and then we can go into the Q&A and just make this dialogue a nice Q&A and let the students kind of guide the conversation.
Okay, cool.
All right.
So I have this mantra that if you make an observation, you have an obligation. And I know I'm going in and out of focus here. Let me see if I can adjust this a little bit so that.
You can say that one more time too.
Yeah, I'll say that again. Hold on, let me try to get my focus here. Okay.
All right.
If you make an observation, you have an obligation. So observation equals obligation. So that means when I see something, you know, I observe something, it's not enough to just see it, right? So for example, I might make an observation, you know, how come, you know, there's no store right here? Well, because you didn't build the store yet. You didn't create it yet, right? How come there's no school, right? That teaches young Black kids freedom, right? Well, because that's where Uhuru comes in, right? Or how come there's no, you fill in the blank, whatever your fill in the blank is. But around the world, when you look out in your world, in your neighborhood, in your city, your town, you notice there's things missing, and you make observations, and then it's your obligation to fill those voids, to put those things in place. And so that's been my mantra as a creator and just as a person. You know, if I make an observation, I have an obligation. If I see someone that needs help, I have an obligation to help, right? Not just to see them, you know, struggling, but to actually be involved in it. And so that's what drives a lot of my work. And I made an observation, you know, in terms of my books, my films, my shows. I've got you know, 4 books and several films, and also we have shows on Snapchat. This studio here that I'm in right now is Wonderful Sound Studio, and it was built, you know, designed to. It was the result of an obligation, right, or an observation. It is an obligation. It was an obligation. It was the result of an observation I made that we needed a place, a studio that we could create in and own our material and create for the world in a way that was high quality, in a way that was, you know, wonderful. So this is called Wonderful Sound Studios, in a way that it was inspiring. So we do all our post-production work for film, music. We did last week, 2 weeks ago, we did the intro to ESPN's Monday Night Football. Did you guys see that?
No, I don't watch football.
Watch football.
We heard about it though.
I
watch
I
football.
do.
Okay, well, yeah, we did the intro to Monday Night Football. Where are you guys based at?
Wait. What is this supposed to be? I don't know.
We actually have students from all over the country online.
I live in California.
Okay, but what
I live
about,
in South Carolina.
okay, but what about where the classroom is?
The classroom, this particular classroom that you see, we're in Columbia, South Carolina. This is
Okay.
Uhuru SC. Uhuru
Wow.
Academy was originally founded in Fort Worth, Texas, right?
Wow.
And so our online program consists of students in 10 different states,
Wow.
3 different time zones. And then we have a beautiful campus out here in Columbia with our team out here in South Carolina. And I think we have about 28 students currently here at this campus. And then we have another partner school, Prince Circle of Legends Academy, and they're based in 5th Ward in Houston, Texas. And they're online with us as well.
Okay, wow. Well, it's amazing to see everybody. This is amazing. It's a new experience for me to you know, with the technology. But you know, so that's been my thing, is transforming observations into obligations. And so, you know, my book Buck, Young Buck, Buck Wild, Buck Shots, Bucktown, Slave Buck, Black Buck, Make Buck, Buck Now, that came out of an observation. My observation was that, you know, we needed a book, a book that young people could gravitate to. Also, I wanted to write the book that I wanted to read when I was in high school. And so that was my observation. You know, my observation was that, you know, young people love to read. They just, you know, didn't always have the right books. And so I wanted to fill that void. And then with the Black Candle, it's the same thing. You know, I'll take you back to 2006. I was a grad student at UCLA. I was in my last year, and you know, I made this observation. The observation was, you know, I was in film school, and I had already made a film called 500 Years Later that dealt with the, thank you, that dealt with the effects of slavery and colonialism on the African diaspora. And you know, so I'd already made that film, and I was looking to make another documentary. And the observation I made was that there was no film about Kwanzaa, which was odd to me because it had been around for a while at that point, you know, about 40 years, and there was no film. And so I was, you know, thinking to myself, how come there's no film on this yet? And again, observation, obligation. So the reason there's no film on Kwanzaa is because you didn't make it yet, right? You know, that's the reason there's no film, you know, and so it's waiting for you to make it. So, you know, so the first thing was observation. The second thing was, okay, obligation. This is a film that I have to make. And when I went on the journey for the Black Candle, it was an extremely educational journey for me. Every time you make a film, you know, it's like going to school, you know, it's immersion into a subject matter. And so I became immersed in the 1960s, the 1970s, the 1980s, the 1990s, and especially as it pertained to Kwanzaa, Black people, you know, cultural education, liberation, everything. And these are things that I was familiar with already to some extent. But when you make a film like this, you have to become, you know, you're talking to experts all the time. And so I wanted to make a film that that will become a part of people's tradition, holiday tradition. And so one of the first things I did was, you know, I contacted Dr. Maya Angelou. And I didn't have her phone number or anything at the time, but I was able to get a phone number for her and get in contact with her. We brought her on board as the narrator. And then we were able to then go out and get funding from black investors. And so when you look at the film and you see, you know, the names Kenny Gamble, for example, the elders will recognize the name Gamble and Huff in the Philadelphia Sound, you know, but those were, you know, that was one of the executive producers of the Black Candle, and also a brother named Dr. Walter Lomax, rest in peace. Dr. Lomax was Dr. Martin Luther King's medical doctor and an incredible businessman in Philadelphia, who still, his family still runs, you know, WURD in Philadelphia. But they saw the vision of what we wanted to do with the film, and they invested, and we were able to make that film, transform that observation into obligation, which is what our ancestors did. You know, when Harriet Tubman looked out, she made an observation. Her people were in bondage, so her obligation was to get her people free. She risked everything to get her people free. Paul Robeson's observation was that, you know, art was not being used in the purpose of social justice. And so his obligation was to sing for freedom. He risked everything. He did it. You know, he was an athlete. He was a lawyer. He was a poet. He was an actor. He sang in 20 languages. He was a scholar. He was an organizer that organized Black folks around the diaspora. So he's an incredible legacy that we come from. And I'm inspired by people like Oscar Michaud, who was the first the first filmmaker, you know, that I really recognize, who made, you know, 44 films against all odds, you know, but he was the one, you know, for example, that gave someone like Paul Robeson his debut in 1925. And so anyway, I'm inspired by all these people. So we wanted to transform an observation into an obligation. You see hip hop in there because we wanted to make it relevant. It is relevant. And we just tried to incorporate, you know, the things that are relevant to the holiday and the principles. And so I'm sure you'll have more specific questions, and I'll get into that later. But I wanted to give you kind of a catalyst for why we made the film, what was the inspiration behind it. And like I said, it was to fill a void. It was, how come this doesn't exist? It doesn't exist because you didn't do it yet. So you have to do it. And you know, and so that's where that came from. And all my projects are a result of that. We have, like I said, we have 2 shows. I don't know, the young people might, some of you might be on Snapchat. So we have a show on Snapchat called Wild Black. And then we have another show on Snapchat called Free Tuition with MK Asante. And so both of those shows on Snapchat are original programs that are produced by MK Asante Productions, and, you know, deal with some of these issues that are in the Black Candle, but other issues that are pertinent to us and to young people, you know. And so, yeah, so that's my work continues in that field, in that regard. I'm a professor at Morgan State University, and I've been a professor here since 2000 and 2000. I had to think about that. Yeah. I've been a professor since 2006 at Morgan State University, which is an HBCU. You know, and so if any of you, you know, come to Morgan's film program or English department, and, you know, I teach Black film, I teach screenwriting, I teach creative writing, and I teach film and business, all these kinds of classes. And so,
all right. You know, we have a very strong creative writing program in our school. We have some very creative young people online right now. Why don't we do something fun right quick? We've been talking about parts of the Black Candle that stand out, that stood out to the students, whether it was emotionally, whether it made them feel good or invoke sadness or whatever. Why don't we allow a couple of students, raise your Zoom hand if you're online, and if you're in the class, raise your hand. just if they could point out a part of the film that stood out to them, and you can kind of break down what the motivation behind that particular.
Okay, that would be great. That'd be wonderful.
Would that be cool? Okay.
That'd be wonderful. Yeah.
Why don't we start with Micaiah? What stood out for you? And matter of fact, why don't you come out this way because you can't see you over there. So Micaiah, if you can stand up and just come over here, right? And yep, that's good. That's good. Okay. So Micaiah, why don't you tell us what stood out for you in the film, or a particular part of the film that stood out to you?
The part when the two teenage boys were assaulting each other, and one of the boys said, "I don't even have a country, and I don't even have a flag." And James Baldwin was right there and said, "I couldn't even tell them that I had a country or a flag." That's the part that stood out for me.
Wow. So how did that make the cut? What was the, you know?
Yeah, I remember that moment vividly because, you know, James Baldwin, you know, he was such the way he spoke was so eloquent, you know. So for example, you know, I remember he says, there was a boy last week, 16, and he said, "I don't have a flag," and he said, and I couldn't tell him he did, you know, and he said it like that very dramatically. And I remember I saw that clip originally in a documentary about James Baldwin called Price of a Ticket. Excellent documentary. And when I saw that clip, it stood out to me. And sometimes when you see something, especially as a filmmaker, I've heard the term before, you're like a scavenger of reality, right? And so I'm constantly storing things that I see or hear, bits and pieces. So you might say something and you may say something in this conversation today, and it may end up in a book or a poem or a lyric or something, because that's how it works. So I heard this lyric, this Baldwin quote, and then when we were making the documentary, and we were really getting at the cultural crisis and why Kwanzaa was so important and necessary, and the context in which it came out of, that clip to me really emotionally connected to why, you know, we talk about that sense of Africans in America being connected to the continent so deeply, and why sometimes there's a sense that here there's a disconnect. And so I thought that was a really good, you know, way to illustrate that point, because when you're making a documentary like this, there's a lot of intellectual ideas, a lot of kind of academic ideas, and it's great as a filmmaker when you can find something emotional that really captures that energy. And so that was very emotional and powerful, and it was Baldwin, and I just thought that it tied in well. Yeah. So
I say thank you.
Thank you. That's a great question.
All right. Why don't we go online? Layla Sabor.
Okay, what stood out to me was when the Hurricane Katrina happened, but they still came together, like after they wasn't like as sad after, and they still celebrated Kwanzaa. And also what stood out to me was when Malcolm X.
I'm sorry, I can't see Layla. Where do I see her at?
Let me spotlight Layla. There she is.
Okay, cool. Hey, how you doing, Layla?
Hi. And also what stood out to me was when Malcolm X said something. When you stick a knife in me, and if you pull it out, and it's like in 8 inches or something, and he said if you pull it out only 6 inches, that's not progress. The progress is when you heal the wound. So also that's what stood out to me.
No, those are excellent. You guys are so on point with your analysis and your clips. I gotta bring you in the edit room. But that's an amazing clips that you point out. I want to talk about them real quick. So Hurricane Katrina, right after when I was making the film, I had received a speaking engagement in New Orleans at Southern University in New Orleans. And so while I was making the film, you know, I was doing other things. I had a book out, and so I was traveling, and I happened to go to New Orleans to do a speaking engagement. Katrina was probably about a year old at that time, or maybe longer. And when I went there, I was shocked. It was 2 years, I think, maybe. I was shocked that it was like the area where we were, it was still devastated. It still looked like, you know, the hurricane had just happened. And so when I started to talk to the people in the community about it, you know, that's when I started to hear about the stories that I wasn't seeing on the news, you know, about how people responded to things. And I wanted to tell that story because it was relevant at the time, but I thought it would be relevant even in the future, right? So even now it's still relevant, those ideas and what they did, and even telling that story, that making sure that we tell that story about people helping each other and people using those principles, because if we don't tell that story, where else are you going to see that story, right, told? So I thought that was important. And then the Malcolm quote is obviously so brilliant because, you know, he's talking, he says, you know, look, he says, you stick it 8 inches in, you pull it out, you know, 2 inches, that's not progress. You pull it out 4 inches. He said, you pull out, even if you pull out 8 inches, it's still not progress. He said, they won't even admit that the knife is there, let alone, you know, talk about healing the wound. They're not even admitting that they got the knife in you, you know? And so he said, so that was such a brilliant, again, you know, when you're making a film, you really start to value individuals who can very precisely use language to really kind of illustrate, summarize a huge idea or a way that so many millions of people are feeling, but in such a powerful way, in such a clever way, in such a witty way, right? So the example that you talked about with Malcolm, you see extreme wit on display, right? He says, they won't even admit the knife is there, you know, and the way he says that, you know, again, it's really, that whole conversation is, you know, oratory genius, you know. Same thing when you look at Muhammad Ali when he's on the plane, right? And he says, you know, we're taught that the Africans, you know, and he said they speak English, you know, you know, and he said we can't even speak English good. I mean, again, the delivery, these icons are able to really capture larger ideas through humor, through wit, through intensity. But those things are important when you're making a film because you only have a limited amount of time. And when people can do that quickly, then it really helps you illustrate the point.
Right.
Hey, all right, someone in the classroom, something in the film stood out for you. Let's go with Hassan.
Okay.
Come step up and speak up. All right.
The part that stood out to me was when, well, close to the beginning of the film, when the people asked, what do you think? Do you know about Kwanzaa? And he said no. And one of the first guys, he said, no, I think it's just a Black Christmas or something like that. And then some other people just don't know about their history.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So opening the film that way, you know, interviewing people about Kwanzaa, asking about Kwanzaa. So that's what stood out to him. What was the motivation behind opening it up that way?
Yeah, I think it was important. Let me just get my focus here again. It's a little off. What's going on? Sorry, just okay. I think there we go. Yeah, so the opening of the film, what I tried to do was show that there's, you know, generally at the time, and I think you probably can attest to it in your own communities and within your own friend groups outside of your school, there generally is an ignorance about cultural things, especially something like Kwanzaa. Not, you know, many of us and are fortunate enough to have parents or go to schools that can enforce those things. But as you know, so many of our brothers and sisters don't know about these things. And, you know, I wanted to show the reality on the street. So I'm literally in the streets of Baltimore, in the streets of Philly, in the streets of DC, in the streets of Chicago, in the streets of, you know, LA, and you know, I'm asking people on the street, you know, coming out of school, coming from work, whatever, yo, what's Kwanzaa? You know, and the responses that I got were really authentic and genuine. And one of the things that I loved about those responses is that people wanted to know. It wasn't like they didn't want to know. They were genuinely curious. Like you saw the woman at the end, she says, I don't know, what is Kwanzaa? Tell me. You know what I mean? She was curious, like, what is it? Like, and that's when you realize, and that's why it's so important that what we're doing right now, that's when you realize that, you know, again, it's education. If you don't learn about something, you never know about it. You just don't even, it's not even on your radar. And so I wanted to illustrate kind of, that's part of the cultural crisis. Right here, we have something that's, you know, stressing these powerful principles, that is, you know, positive for the community, yet so many of us don't even know about it, right? And so I think that should invigorate those who know about it and those who know about things, to make sure our brothers and sisters, you know about it. And that's why, again, as a filmmaker, that's why those, you know, you guys are great. And I love that you're watching this film. But in so many ways, I made the film for the people in the beginning of the film, because they don't know about this. You see what I'm saying? And so that's where that came from.
I say. All right, Mom and Koyo, you want to, someone raise your Zoom hand online, and Mom and Koyo, you select the next person to talk about what stood out for them in the film.
Zoom hand. I'm going to say as for Rondé.
First, the reason I keep putting up this clapping hand is because I don't have a regular hand. And what stood out for me was probably the 2 sets of notes poem.
You like that one? Yeah, I wrote that poem when I was like probably like 18 or something. And you know, I just turned 39 the other day, and you know, people everywhere I go, whenever I do speaking engagements and things like that, people still ask me to do that poem. And it's still, you know, it's one of those pieces that it's very relevant to people, and they love it. So I decided, okay, whenever people ask me to do the poem, I'll do the poem, because they still
really so
I got you. Just for you, Uhuru. But I'll do the poem for you. It's this, like this. I find myself feeling as if I'm touching the ground and the ceiling in schools that don't engage in healing. No, they simply open the wounds and entrap me in rooms where I am consumed by hypocrisy. But hold up. Even Greek philosophers weren't the authors of their own philosophies. And the statues on campus be watching me. Washington, Jefferson, clocking me, as if to say my time's up. But I don't run laps on tracks, nah. I run laps around the scholars of tomorrow, because their new schools of thought are merely our histories borrowed. And they label me militant and black national radical. Yo, they tried to put my learning process on sabbatical, but I don't apologize. I spit truth into those eyes that have been infected by those lies. Then they try to get me to see their point of view from a cat that looked like me, but he don't walk like me, talk like me, or act like me. And homie started running when I asked if he was black like me, mastering their thoughts and forgetting our own. And you wonder why we always feel alone. From the media to academia, hanging brothers like coats. That's why in they schools, I take 2 sets of notes. One set to ace the test, and the other set I call the truth. And when I find historical contradictions, I use that first set as proof that black youth's minds are being polluted, convoluted, diluted, not culturally rooted in anything except the Western massacre. Shit, that's why most of us in school, we were scared of Africa. We were taught our motherland through the eyes of David Hume and Immanuel Kant, not knowing Immanuel Kant tell me nothing about a land he's never seen, a land rich with history, beautiful kings and queens. But they had us believe otherwise. The history they taught was built on high-rise lies. They didn't teach me that the pyramids were completed before Greece and Rome were conceptualized. Then they try to claim the Egyptians' race was a mystery, and I used to believe them until I went to Egypt, read Herodotus, book 2 of the histories. Can it be any clearer? Black students, look in the mirror. You are a reflection of divinity. Don't ever let them fool you with selective memory. Walk high, listen to the elders who spoke. Black students always take 2 sets of notes. Feel me?
That was good.
That was really good. I never would have expected to say it like that. I thought we were treated like people that look on their emotions. I didn't know what to say it like that. I didn't.
Beautiful.
Beautiful, magnificent.
All right, great stuff. Great. Rondé, you get extra credit for bringing that up, man. You probably have to use that some notes. That's what I'm talking about. Way to do that. Way to do that. We definitely appreciate
that was a good one. That was a good one. You woke me up. Now I'm up this morning.
Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. Why don't we take one more here in the classroom? Right. Why don't we take one more here in the classroom, and then can we open it up for a few questions, and then we'll let you know if we know you're very busy.
Thank you so
really
much.
Appreciate your time.
I appreciate you.
All
guys.
right. All right. Let me still get one of my little ones. Alina B, what stood out for you in the film? Did you get to see the film, Alina?
No.
Okay, there's somebody who got to see the film. Yeah, they were in here. Somebody who got to see the film in here. Emmanuel, stand up. All right. What part of the film stood out for you?
Seeing Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr.
No, I was trying to ignore it.
Like that.
Okay, on whose wall?
It was on the wall. It was just on the wall of the building in the background.
Oh, like with the mural.
And I like when they was doing a protest.
Okay. So the protest, and then what stood out to him, he loved seeing Martin and Malcolm on the mural. So that process of visuals, like what we see, a lot of the colorways, we saw murals, we just saw a lot of Black creativity. I know Emmanuel's looking back at me every time a piece of art would flash. I'm like, man, that's clean. That sort of thing. So what was the thought process between, with that? Because that's not an accident either, right?
No, definitely not. I think the murals, I'm from Philadelphia, so there's murals all over our city. It's just it's a part of the fabric of the city. So everywhere you go, you see colorful, powerful murals celebrating Black people. So, whether it's Dr. J or Sonia Sanchez or, Octavius Cotto, or, there's so many, icons, and this is just part of, so naturally, as a filmmaker, that just becomes a part of the way that I am now telling the story, right? Using murals and especially the colors, when I think about Africa and I think about, Black culture, I think about color, you know what I mean? I think, you look at a dashiki, you look at the fabrics, it's all colorful. And so I think that definitely speaks to that. You look at Kwanzaa, it's colorful. And so it spoke to that.
I say. All right. I want to give one of my instructors online an opportunity. Miss Haley Laird. Miss Haley, what stood out for you in the film?
Muted, Miss Haley.
We can spotlight Miss Haley. Unmute yourself, Miss Haley.
I was muted. Okay. So what stood out to me was the fact in the beginning of the film, and they did not know what Kwanzaa was, but at the end of the film, they found out what Kwanzaa was and wanted to incorporate it in their lives, as well as the New Orleans flood, the Hurricane Katrina, because my family, we are from Louisiana, and it affected some of my family. And I had found out through my great uncle who lived in New Orleans about Jabbar Gills and Christopher Wills, who stole 2 buses to bring to the Houston Dome. But when they got there, they were arrested.
Those are the stories that weren't being told. You know what I mean? Yeah, thank you. Definitely. Yep.
I say.
Thank you.
All right. Let's see. We want to respect your time, and thank you, Miss Haley. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Yeah, but we want to respect your time. What are you working on now? And how can we support you in what you're doing?
Okay, you know, a great way to support this film, we just, so for example, with the Black Candle, it just became available on Amazon, streaming. And so we want to support, the way you can support, you know, my work is by promoting it, you know, by promoting it on, you know, your social media platforms, writing reviews when you have an opportunity to write a review of something. So if you really like the film, write a review of it and let people know, because that encourages other people to watch it and spreads the word. I think that the main thing for Black artists and entrepreneurs is, you know, we just got to support each other, you know, and so let me know how I can continue to support Uhuru. And like I said, you support my work by just promoting it, and if you like it, sharing it with other people. That helps a lot.
Can I be in one of your films?
Uh-oh.
Can I be in there too? I would love to have a perspective in there.
That's awesome. You know, I think the best way to get involved in a film is to, you know, continue to do what it is that you're doing, and then, you know, like make sure that people know about it, and then they'll see what you're doing, and then they'll reach out to you to be involved in something. Or you could also reach out to me. You can follow me on social media, or like you know, we have a subscription list on my website, mkasante.com. You guys can subscribe to that or something like that. But generally, if we're doing something like, you know, some kind of call, we'll announce it or something like that. But we always are looking for people in the community who are doing things that we might want to spotlight or feature or incorporate into a story that we're telling. So,
you know what, everybody on everybody in the Uhuru Academy, when you sign up and subscribe, put hashtag Uhuru Academy on there so they know that you're part of the Uhuru Academy family.
Definitely.
Right.
And I really respect.
I don't know if you heard Dorlia. Dorlia said, "Can I be in one of your films?"
Oh yeah, that's what I.
Oh, okay, you heard. Okay, yeah, that's like ready, man.
Yeah, I can't see her, but I was just saying, you know, the way to get involved is just to, you know, to follow what's going on, you know. And I know some of you are probably too young for social media, but to follow what's going on, have your parents follow what's going on, and see what opportunities, you know, pop up, you know, and then continue to do great things in your world, and people will recognize you and come find you. You know, when we made the Black Candle, for example, we found so many. I mean, you look at that film, the thing that stands out to me most about the Black Candle, by the way, is it's full of ancestors, new ancestors. So when you look at Dr. Maya Angelou, you know, rest in peace, rest in power, Dr. Maya Angelou. The guy who funded the film, Walter Lomax, Dr. Walter Lomax, rest in peace. Baba Chuck Davis, the great choreographer from North Carolina, rest in peace, rest in power. The great Amiri Baraka, rest in peace, rest in power. The great Queen Mother Frances Pierce, rest in peace, rest in power. Philip Freeland, who designed the Smithsonian Museum of African American Culture in DC, rest in peace, rest in power. These are all people that are in the Black Candle. And so when I watch the film, it's like, wow, you know, this is so important that we tell our stories and preserve these stories. So anyway, so that's one thing I want to leave you guys with. But thank you so much. I appreciate everything you're doing at Uhuru. Let me know how I can continue to support you guys as well. All right.
I'm gonna tell you something.
Come back again.
Black Candle is a part of our tradition. We've watched it every year for the last, since it came out. We show it every year. It's been instrumental in inspiring us to get out into our community and really build our school. So our school was born in 2010, the same year that, that Black Candle came out. And you and I have never met, but we've worked together. You just didn't know it. Right.
Awesome.
Right. So we appreciate you taking time out and visiting us today. And hopefully even this experience will inspire you to let you know that your work is inspiring people all over the world, and we could testify to that. And it helps spark the whole movement that we're involved in right now.
Wow. Thank you so much. I appreciate you so much, brother. Appreciate everything y'all doing. Let's keep in touch.
All right, y'all can say what you want to say.
All right, peace.
Peace and Black Power.
Have a good day.
Peace.
Do the same.
My daughter gave me this bracelet yesterday.
You got
She did great.
Oh, you got some kids.
Yay.
All right, brother.
Oh, I can really be her best friend.
All right. Was that not cool?
Yes, indeed.
Interesting.
Oh my gosh.
Right. So online students, you have an assignment. Hopefully you were taking notes during the lecture. I want to know, you're going to go to Google Classroom, you're going to go to Google Docs. I want you to type what stood out most for you in that lecture, right? Some of his answers. I really like his mantra. He said something about observation and obligation.
Yes, if you make an observation, you have an obligation.
If you make an observation, you have an obligation. If you see something wrong, you have an obligation to take care of it, right?
That's right.
And that's from small, what you might think small things, on up to the big thing.
That's right.
On the floor, doesn't belong on the floor. Observation is a what? Obligation. It's not, I didn't put that there. I didn't put it there. Don't saw it. That means you have a what? Obligation. I love that. Anybody else? Comments, questions, concerns? Yes.
That was actually like I can't even see that. But you have a Layla Sabor on there. We have a Layla Abdul Sabor.
Yes, we have two Layla Sabors, y'all. We have a Layla.
Really?
Yes, we have. This is Layla Sabor. I do. Layla. Abdul.
Are you guys related?
Yeah.
I don't know. Are you related? I don't know.
My middle name, I have two middle names. My two
Layla
are Camilla and Iman. So my whole name is Layla Iman Camilla Sabor.
Oh,
okay.
Wait a minute. Say that again.
Layla Iman Camilla Sabor.
Hold on right quick. What is yours?
Layla Camille, yeah.
She's Camille too.
What? Crazy.
Too many.
Wow.
That is
so cool.
Yeah. So,
Crazy.
Our online Layla is in Maryland.
Yep.
Yeah, she's in Maryland, and of course we're in South Carolina. Who would have thought it, right?
Wow.
Right. Anybody else? And I like to thank. I know we have some family members and some parents online. Yep. I would love to get some feedback, right, from parents or someone that's visiting online. How was it? How'd you feel? How do you feel about Uhuru Academy? How'd you feel about today?
Grandma, how'd you feel about it?
Oh, Grandma.
I'm Layla's great aunt. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm Layla's great aunt, and I want to thank Layla for inviting me today. Usually Kwanzaa is at my house, but we're going to have to do it. But we're going to have to do it online this year.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So thank you, Layla.
You're welcome, Asante.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Layla. Great job.
You're welcome.
All right. I'm gonna give everybody. Let's give ourselves one more big black hand.
Asante, where you go?
Right now, right? And yeah, that's what we got. Thank you, Mama Koyo, Mama Haley, the staff and team here. Great job. We're going to have some very interesting guests in the near future too. So we're going to have even more special guests that have made positive impacts on our community visiting the online classroom. All right, Black people doing powerful and wonderful and positive things. They're out here, and we're adding to it because all of you are going to do powerful and positive things in our community. All right, great job. All right, we're done, y'all. This session is
for the introduction
program.
Thank you, Kibra.
Are we going on a break?
Yes.
Yeah, I think a break is in order, maybe a 15-minute break.
Yes.
Can I read you something that hey Baba?
Baba, Ron's talking to you.